Hello everyone, welcome to a build order for Littlewargames. This video is going to be used to kind of describe a standard Rax opening and go over some details for what a build order for Rax play might look like. So the first thing you do is you build one worker, and then you save up gold for a second worker, which is 50 gold. Once you have that 50 gold, go ahead and spend that gold on your second worker. So now you have one worker building and you have another queuing up to be built. What you're gonna do next is after you've bought these two workers, you're gonna want to build a house. So once you reach the 50 gold mark, go ahead and pull an additional worker off your gold mine and pull it to go ahead and build a house. The best place to build your first house is going to be down here, right next to this ramp. It's a good blocking building. And then an additional trick when you do build the house is to pull the worker slightly further, so that you can have your worker right here when you're building the house. That way you can scout against any like potential tower rushes that are going up right here in front of your base. At the same time, once you have the money, go ahead and buy an additional worker. In case all this information is going, pretty quickly, I'm gonna have a spreadsheet in the description of the video that you can copy and like maybe put it in a Word document to use in your own games if you want to look at it or practice against a computer. This game I am practicing against a computer, so the computer is obviously not going to be very good against me, right? Okay, so we have that second worker building that I mentioned. At this point, we should have 9 workers on the mineral line, and then go ahead, once you're done building that house, go ahead and wait a second. For me, I like to use my worker to scout around, but once you have 125 gold, go ahead and build your barracks. At this point, this is probably the longest point of the game. Once you have enough money, you're going to build another worker, right? So boom, we see the worker queued. At least we should. We should. What you're going to want to do is once you're done setting up your barracks, once you're like starting to build your barracks, what you're going to want to do is you're actually going to want to queue up 2 more workers. So you're going to have the worker that's currently being built plus 2 more. So there's the 2 additional workers. And then let's go ahead and yeah, so what's going to happen now is these 2 workers are going to be being built, and then while they're being built, once your barracks is completely finished, you're going to want to build 2 raiders. This is a solid opening for having some defensive units, as well as sending out some raiders to scout on the other side of the map to see what your opponent is doing. It's a very defensive build. It's also very, I want to say, balanced. It allows you to get workers. It allows you to get a second base pretty quickly, while at the same time it allows you to be safe. And those raiders are for safety. So, as I mentioned, we had those 2 workers going. Now one of them has been built, so now we only have 1 worker going, and then we have our 2 raiders queued. Something I want to mention is that the gold mine mines most efficiently at 10 workers, and we currently have 10 workers, so sending this 11th worker back to mine is technically not efficient. It's less efficient, so what I like to do is I like to send out this worker out on the map to scout for any potential proxies, for any potential like wolf dens that might be on my side of the map. So that's what I use that for. Then at the same time, we see that our raider is popped and it's starting to come on this side of the map. The next thing we're going to want to look for is once our gold is at 200 and about 50, 260, we want to pull a worker off the mineral line and get it to our second base location. So you should see this pretty quickly. Yep, I pull this worker and I'm sending it to the worker line. At the same time, we do see that the raider is on the map. It's at the middle. My worker is also in the middle of the map to kind of help each other. If there's like a wolf or a raider here, they can both attack it. And then once you have 350 gold, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to build that castle. So 350, we put down the castle, and now we're good to go. So we have a second castle building. Notice that while we were getting our 2 raiders, there was a point in time where this castle wasn't building any workers. That's fine. It's kind of the cost of getting a faster second base, but you do get to build a worker immediately after the castle with the first with the first 50 gold that you see. So now we see the benefit of having this raider on the other side of the map. We can see that my opponent is going for barracks play. Obviously, it's the computer. It's not doing a very good job of putting these buildings out, but this is kind of what you want to do with the raider. Now you get an additional raider. So after you build your castle, you get a worker, then you build a raider, and then that way you have worker production and raider production going on pretty consistently. And what you're going to want to do with this build is you're going to want to keep building workers till you have 10 workers per gold mine, and you're going to want to build raiders till you have 5 raiders. This is pretty much like a standard mass raider, but pretty much like you want to get 5 raiders to do some pressure and also to do some scouting. And then you're going to follow it up with a third base, but I'll explain how that works in just a second. So I'll go ahead and speed it up slightly. Oh, there is a trick here. Notice that we have very low gold. What you're going to want to do is you're not going to want to queue up another worker in this base, even though it's technically getting close. What you're going to want to do first is, here's the worker pull some workers to your second base, but make your next worker at your second base, then build another worker at your main base so that there's no delay time between the bases. Okay, so that's that little trick. And then, as I mentioned, keep building raiders and workers until you're at 5 raiders, and then until you're at 10 workers per base. And something you can notice is that the saturation at my first and second is exactly the same. We want to keep it that way because gold mines are pretty efficient at low worker counts. Obviously 10 is right where you want to be for the most amount of workers getting you money, but obviously if you can separate your workers evenly between the bases, that's a little bit better. At this point, what you're going to want to do is build 2 workers per castle, and then you're going to build 2 raiders. And that way you basically have your raiders queued up to get you 5. So now there's 4 raiders, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the units. So now there's 4 raiders on the map, and then we have our workers going. And then once this raider pops, we're going to have 5. What you're going to want to do at this point is you're going to want to build a house. So immediately after you queue these things up, you want to build a house, and then you want to build a second barracks. I'm a little bit late to this because I'm microing on the second, on the other side of the map. But you can see now I get my barracks, and then I should be getting my house. So not too late. And then afterwards, you're gonna want to get that the 10th worker at both of the gold mines. So you want to queue up 2 more workers. Once you're done producing with this raider here, with your first barracks, this will be your 5th raider. You're gonna want to queue up a soldier. The reason why you're gonna want to queue up a soldier is because you're gonna want to start to get a defensive army or a defensive force at home, so that you can take a third base safely. That way you don't overextend. All of your army is on the other side of the map. We need a little bit of army on this side of the map so that we can safely get a third base. So here comes our barracks. There's our house being built. We are supply blocked, but obviously if you would have built this house a little bit faster than what I did it, you would have obviously not been supply blocked at this time. And then secondly, we want to get an additional house. The reason for the second house is because we're going to be getting a lot of supply in army, and we want to make sure we have the supply left over, or the capacity of supply to actually do something once we have these things queued up. So a trick I like to do is once I get these 10 workers on the gold mine, I like to get an 11th on my second gold mine. The reason why I like to get an 11th is because I know I'll have to pull one of these workers to the third base in order to get that third base. So this is like a very very economical and very safe three base kind of play. So then at the same time, obviously, while you're playing your game, you can use these raiders to scout and to do some harassment. I'm playing against the computer, so I'm pretty obviously destroying the computer with my raider play. But as you can see here, you now have these soldiers being queued, and then you'll follow those up with 2 archers, and then you'll be able to pull one of these workers to the side so that you can get that castle starting to be built. And you can notice that we're on 39 of 50 supply. If we were at 39 of 40, we would be supply blocked right now, and we wouldn't be able to get additional army for a little bit there. But yeah, once we have these units that are coming out, we can pretty safely start to construct a third base, which is what I'm planning to do. This is less refined. Obviously, the more that you're into the game, the less refined a build order is going to be, because so much could be happening. But this is definitely like a 2x opening that you can go for. Obviously, there's variations of this, so everything that you saw from getting those 2 raiders is pretty standard of a Rax opening. But then obviously there's so many ways you can diverge from there. But at this point, what you're going to want to do is get some consistent army production as well as some consistent worker production. So what you can do is, when the castle is about halfway through constructing, you can actually start building workers and rallying them to the third base, because by the time the workers get to the third base, the castle will actually be done producing. Another important detail about this list is you want to keep your raiders safe as long as possible. They are your information gatherers. They're also a great harassment tool and a fantastic defensive tool if you ever need to defend with your raiders. And then, as you can see, we're staying. The benefit of this extra house makes it so that we can build this castle. Makes it so that we can keep getting more army without needing to worry about being supply blocked. And this is the benefit of having this like defensive opening. At the same time, we're being very aggressive. So we're playing this very defensive in the sense that we have army at home to defend, but we also have units on the other side of the map to scout and also to harass with, which is a benefit of this opening. And as you can see, these workers are going to arrive at this third base essentially at the same time that it finishes, which is what I mentioned earlier. And then again, once you get to that point, you want to start building workers from your main bases until you have 10 workers at your next expand. And then at this point, it's up to you what you want to do out of this opening. For me, I like to get an additional barracks, probably 4 barracks and a church to have a defensive, Rax army, and then potentially grow my barracks count, especially towards the middle of the game. But essentially, what I've shown you up to this point is a very balanced Rax opening on two barracks that lets you expand to a third barracks, and it's pretty clean. It's pretty refined. Again, as I mentioned, this build order is going to be in the description, so if you ever want to practice it and get used to a build order that's pretty safe, but also lets you be pretty aggressive on the other side of the map, getting information, then I'll have the build order down there so that you can copy it and so that you can use it in your own games. Additional things you could do here is potentially get a workshop so that you can get some catapults. You can also get an advanced workshop so that you can go for some airship plays. But pretty consistently, you're always going to want to get to this 4 barracks count so that you can continue to produce army units, so that you can protect your bases. And then eventually, you're going to want a 4th, whether it be here, and then a 5th, whether it be here or here. So that's kind of how this build order works. That's exactly how this build order works. So what else do I need to talk about? Not much. Just make sure that you get to 5 units before you, or not before, but try to get up to 5 so that you can defend your third base while it's being built. And then obviously once you get to a point where you have enough money to build your fourth base while producing on 3 barracks as well as an additional church, that is going to be a great place for you to be, because it'll make sure you have a safe army, and then it'll allow you the economy to continue to scale up your castle and your gold mine, your income essentially. But another thing I want to notice is that once you're on 10 workers on every base, you can stop producing workers. Just make sure that you always have 10, and then once you do have 10, that'll free up a lot of your economy, because beforehand your economy was used to produce workers, and now that you're not producing workers, you can use that money to produce other things like more army, more tech, or potentially a fourth base as well. So with that, the game ends. The computer has been eliminated. I hope you enjoyed this build order guide, and I hope it's beneficial for you, especially for newer players that are trying to get into the game and learn how to play. I'll post this down below so that you guys can learn it and do it yourself. All right, see you guys. Hope you have a good one. Talk to you later.